My mother put her hand on my arm. That was the only warning I got. One hand placed quietly on my forearm while I was drawing breath to respond to the worst thing anyone had said at a dinner table in my presence. My hand was calm. Her face was calm. And the look she gave me, brief, precise, the look she had been giving me my entire life when she needed me to step back and let her handle something, stopped me completely. Then my mother spoke. One sentence, without raising her voice, and the table did not recover. My name is Emily Carter. I am 29 years old. I'm a brand strategist in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been married to Tyler Harmon for 2 years, and the woman who has spent those 2 years finding careful, deniable ways to communicate that I am not quite what she had in mind for her son finally said it plainly, in front of 8 people at a dinner I had spent 3 days preparing for. She called my mother uneducated, not as a slip, not as something that could be walked back. She said it the way people say things they have been thinking for a long time and decided they no longer need to manage. Before I take you back to where this started, subscribe and leave a like. Drop your city and time in the comments. I read every single one. My mother is the reason this story ends the way it does. Stay with me. Let me go back 2 years. Tyler's mother, Sandra Harmon, is 61 years old, retired, the kind of woman who keeps a mental ledger of everything and balances it regularly. She had a vision for her son, the right school, the right career, and the right wife. Tyler had attended the right school, he had the right career, and then he had brought home me. I grew up in Covington, Kentucky, across the river from Cincinnati. My father worked in logistics. My mother, Carol, worked at a school, not as a teacher, but in the front office, managing the administrative machinery of a building full of other people's children with the competence and care of someone who had found her exact right place. She did not have a college degree. She had something rarer, the specific intelligence of a person who understood systems, people, and the difference between what someone says and what they mean. Sandra had met my mother twice before the dinner. Both times had been cordial in the way things are cordial when one person is performing warmth and the other is simply being warm. The comments had started within 3 months of the wedding. Never direct. Sandra operated through implication, a word choice here, a pause there, the specific art of saying something that could always be reframed as concern if challenged directly. Courtly must be so proud that Emily went to college, said to Tyler in my presence, as if the bar had been low and I had cleared it. It must be different for Emily, growing up across the river, not having the same opportunities. Said to her friend at a brunch I had been invited to and then made to feel like a guest rather than an equal. Tyler had heard these things. He had addressed them, gently, with the particular gentleness of a man who loved both his mother and his wife and kept hoping the gap between them would narrow on its own. The gap did not narrow. The dinner was a Sunday in November. Both families, 8 people at the table in Tyler's parents' home. My parents, my in-laws, Tyler's sister and her husband. The kind of dinner that requires 3 days of mental preparation because the variables are numerous and the stakes are personal. The symbol in this story is my mother's hand, the way it felt on my arm, the weight of it, the specific temperature of her palm through the sleeve of my dress at the exact moment I needed it most. We were 40 minutes into the main course when Sandra said it.
The conversation had been moving around education. Tyler's sister, Vanessa, had mentioned a graduate program she was considering. This pulled the conversation toward degrees and careers, and the particular way the Harmon family discussed credentials as a natural language, fluent and constant, the way some families discuss sports. My father made a comment about my mother's work. He was proud of her, he always was, and he described what she did with the warmth of a man who had watched his wife be exceptionally good at something for 30 years. Sandra smiled. the smile that was not a smile. "Carol," she said, setting down her fork with the deliberateness of someone who had decided something, "it must be so fulfilling, doing what you do even without the formal background. Some people just have a natural way with people, don't they? Even without the education." The word landed. Even without the education. Not a slip, a placement. The table went very quiet, in the specific way tables go quiet when something has been said that everyone has heard and nobody is sure how to absorb. I turned toward Sandra. I had been preparing for this moment for 2 years, not consciously, but the way you prepare for something you have always known was coming. I had words ready, precise words, the kind that named exactly what had just happened without leaving any room for it to be reframed. I drew breath. My mother's hand came down on my arm. Warm, steady, the hand she had put on my arm 100 times before, when I was 7 and about to say something that would make a situation worse, when I was 17 and about to make a scene at a school event, when I was 24 and about to cry in a professional setting and needed exactly 1 second of grounding. I stopped. She looked at me for half a second. Let me. Then she turned to Sandra. My mother did not raise her voice. My mother has never raised her voice in a situation where raising her voice would give the other person something to point to. This is something she understood before she had language for it, that the most powerful response to someone who wants to diminish you is to refuse to perform the diminishment they have scripted for you.
She said one sentence. I am not going to tell you the sentence yet because the sentence only lands correctly if you understand who my mother is, which I'm still explaining. Stay with me. You need to know what the next part revealed before the sentence will hit you the way it hit that table. What I will tell you is this. The sentence was 7 words long. My mother delivered it at her normal speaking volume, with her normal expression, looking directly at Sandra. She did not pause for effect afterward. She picked up her fork and returned to her food. Sandra did not speak again for 11 minutes. I counted. Tyler's sister Vanessa looked at her plate. Her husband looked at the wall. My father looked at my mother with an expression I'd seen on her face before, the expression of a man who has been married to someone remarkable for 31 years and is still regularly reminded of exactly how remarkable. If you've ever watched someone you love handle a moment perfectly, with more grace and more precision than you could have managed yourself, drop a comment, because watching my mother at that table is something I will carry for the rest of my life. Stay with me. I looked at Sandra's face, and I understood for the first time clearly that she had not expected this. She had expected me. I need to tell you about my mother first. Carol Carter grew up in Covington. She was the 3rd of 5 children in a house where money was managed carefully and love was not managed at all. It was simply present, consistent, in the way that essential things become unremarkable when they are always there. She did not go to college. She had wanted to, and the timing had not worked, and she had made a different life, and she had never, in my presence, expressed regret about it. What she had expressed, consistently, throughout my entire childhood, was a specific kind of intelligence that had nothing to do with credentials. She could read a room in 4 seconds. She could identify what someone actually needed in a conversation as opposed to what they were saying they needed. She could de-escalate a situation not by avoiding it, but by removing its oxygen, taking away the drama a moment had been counting on to sustain itself. She had managed the front office of an elementary school for 22 years. She knew every parent, every staff member, every child who passed through those doors. When she retired, they gave her a party that the principal described as the largest staff celebration in the school's history. I had attended. I had watched 60 adults cry about a woman who had never taught a single class. That was my mother. Now you are ready for the sentence. Sandra had said, even without the education, and my mother, after her hand on my arm, after her half-second look, after turning to face Sandra with the full calm attention of someone who has nothing to prove and knows it, said, "Sandra, I've always found that people who lead with credentials are usually worried about something else entirely." 7 words that were actually 2 sentences carrying one complete thought. The table absorbed it. Tyler's father, Gerald, looked at his plate. Vanessa made a small sound. My father set down his glass very carefully. Sandra's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My mother picked up her fork. My ally in this story is my father, not because he did anything dramatic, because of what he did 4 minutes after my mother's sentence, when the table had been attempting to recover and the conversation had limped back toward something neutral. He reached across the table and filled my mother's wine glass without being asked. He did it quietly, without looking at Sandra, without making it a statement. He just tended to her, the way he always had.
And I felt something loosen in my chest that I had not known was tight. That subscribe button is right there, because what happened after dinner, what Tyler said to his mother in the kitchen while I was helping clear the table, I did not expect him to say, and it changed something between us. Tyler was standing at the kitchen sink when I came in with the first stack of plates. His mother was not there. I set the plates down. "I heard what she said," he told me. "The original thing, and I heard what your mother said back, and I should have been the one to say something before it ever got that far." He looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. "I have been too patient with behavior I should have named 2 years ago. That ends now." I looked at my husband. He meant it. I could tell because he was not performing the apology. He was making a decision. "Okay," I said. I went back to the dining room. My mother was talking to Tyler's father about something completely unrelated. She was laughing at whatever he had said. She had already moved on. Sandra called Tyler the next morning at 8:34 a.m. I know the time because I was in the kitchen when his phone rang and I saw her name on the screen. He answered. He went to the other room. I made coffee and I did not try to listen, not because I was not curious, but because I had decided the night before that what happened between Tyler and his mother was Tyler's to handle. I had said that to him explicitly, lying in bed after the dishes were done and the families had left. "She's your mother. This is yours to manage. I am not going to manage it for you anymore." He had said, "I know. I'm not asking you to." He was on the phone for 26 minutes. When he came back to the kitchen, his face had the particular quality of someone who has just said something significant and is sitting inside the weight of having said it. "She apologized," he said. I poured him coffee. "For what specifically?" I asked. "For the comment about your mother, and I pushed her for the pattern, the 2 years of comments. She said she didn't realize how consistent it had been." I looked at my coffee. "Do you believe her?" He thought about it honestly, which I appreciated. "I believe she didn't realize she was doing it as systematically as she was. I don't think she was completely unaware, but I think she told herself each individual thing was small enough to be fine. And now," he said, "now she knows I will not let individual things be fine anymore." I told her that clearly. I nodded. I thought about my mother's sentence, 7 words, the way Sandra had not spoken for 11 minutes, the way my father had filled her glass. "My mother will never bring it up again," I said. "She doesn't hold on to things that have been handled. She handled it and she moved on." "I know," Tyler said. "She is a remarkable person." "She has always been a remarkable person," I said. "Sandra just never looked." He didn't argue with that. Sandra came to Christmas that year. She brought a gift for my mother, a small thing,
a book about something my mother had mentioned once that I had not thought Sandra had registered. She handed it to my mother with the careful gesture of someone extending something they are not sure will be received. My mother received it warmly, genuinely, the way she received everything, without keeping a record of what it had cost to give it. They talked for 20 minutes near the fireplace. I watched from across the room. I did not know if it would become something, a relationship, a real one, the kind where the warmth is not performed. I was not going to predict that. But I watched Sandra listen to my mother talk, and I watched Sandra's face, the particular expression of someone who is understanding, maybe for the first time, that they have been measuring a person by the wrong instrument entirely. My mother's sentence did not change Sandra. Nothing changes a person in 7 words. But it stopped something. It named something. And sometimes naming the thing is the only power you have, and it turns out to be enough. The people who love you most do not always fight loudly on your behalf. Sometimes they put a hand on your arm and say 7 words at their normal speaking volume and pick up their fork. Sometimes that is the most powerful possible. My name is Emily Carter, and I learned what strength sounds like at a dinner table in November from a woman who never raised her voice in her life and never needed to.